Yo, what is going on YouTube? It is your boy GZTV back with another video, and we are here to close out the first of a couple of seasons, hopefully, of Dexter Resurrection. We have the finale, the most important episode of the entire show. I'm just going to kind of go through, have a discussion, give my thoughts on how they executed it, because man, a lot was gearing up for this. Kind of a disappointing 9th episode. You guys can go watch my review on that, but a lot to talk about here, and I'm going to be honest, I think I'm just going to put this out there right now. The franchise stuck the landing, I think. Avoiding another divisive finale. This is one of the better finales this show has seen probably since one of the early Dexter seasons. I think they did this pretty well, especially for everything that was on the table. You know, obviously Batista wasn't going to be a part of this episode, so I think for all of that, they didn't do too bad here. And there's obviously major spoilers ahead for this episode, although a lot of the stuff was kind of expected to happen. This episode is called Injustice for All. It ends with the classic image of Dexter dumping a body off a boat into a harbor, bringing the remarkable first season of the franchise's third expansion series to a pretty satisfying ending. Like, it's fine, it's satisfying, but at the same time, there are some underwhelming things about it, just what they did, what the directions of the storyline is in general. So we're going to talk about that today. Just when it looked like the wheels were starting to fall off the wagon with the arguably rushed death of Miami Metro Captain Angel Batista in the previous episode, I think the series finale pulls off a clutch and full circle conclusion. I think, again, for the writers to do what they did, and with everything out there on the table, I think they did pretty well with this. Harrison and Dexter work together to take out Prater, kind of expected, making sure that the NYPD finds his serial killer shrine, but will never find his body. So that's going to lead to all sorts of dope developments. I'm sure I'm going to go a little bit more in depth in this video about it. The whole New York Ripper stuff, they showed a name at the end, and it's not really who you would think. It's not like a legacy character or anything, but it's fine. We can kind of just get into it. There's a lot to talk about. Let's go. I think the show pulls off a pretty strong finale, one of the better seasons in Dexter history, and sadly enough, I know how great this franchise is just because of the first 3 or 4 seasons, but that's not a high bar really to be set anymore. It's one of the better seasons. I do think it is a top 5 season in Dexter, so the attention to detail throughout this finale is on a pretty experted level. I think they did well. I think the writers started to make a little bit more sense here. The idea to include Brian Moser's Dark Passenger return as Dexter mourned for Batista in Prater's vault was perfect. I loved that. I think that was cool. I think that's something that we definitely could have had sooner, but nonetheless, I'm really glad that they brought it here. And obviously that Dark Passenger hadn't been around since it was that one Nebraska episode. The slow camera pan to reveal Brian in the background wearing a signature red collared shirt and saying, "Oops, you did it again," was gold for the show. I think that was great. I think that was a pretty awesome moment. Brian Moser being here, again, kind of legacy stuff, again, kind of nostalgia corn to kind of get the fans into it. Through his conversation with Brian, though, a guilt-ridden Dexter can grieve for Batista. You know, he's sitting back just kind of thinking of all the times we had, and Brian Moser being like the devil on his shoulder and being like, did he really care for you? He knew you were a killer for the longest time. Did he actually care for you all those times, or was he just kind of buying into the camaraderie of a police department? We don't know. Brian tells him that listening to his fake dad Harry is the only reason why he's in pain over Batista, alluding to the conflict between Harry and Brian at the end of Original Sin. Rest in peace to that show. It really fucking sucks that we're not getting a second season of that show, because wow, that was great. But that's fine. I think it's cool that they're kind of paying homage to it now that we know it's not coming out. Now, I don't know what the sequencing of this was. I'm sure they made all 10 episodes of Resurrection, just like kind of released them boom, boom, boom. But I don't know. The finale honors Batista's death in the way that the previous episode didn't have time for. I guess they did kind of take some time here, which is satisfying enough. Now, obviously, just the death itself of Batista is kind of disappointing. I didn't really expect him to die in the first goddamn season. I knew all along something bad was going to happen to Batista, but I guess they kind of make up for it here with a few moments. Brian's uncalled for Batista sashimi line was kind of fucked up, but he also makes him a key part of Dexter's escape from Prater's mansion, so there's a lot of stuff. It's clever, sinister, it's very classic elements of this show. I think the writers are kind of back in their element for this, which is very awesome to see, and I'm glad to see it. You know, it's clutch. You know, you're going into the season finale. Obviously, you have more to come with the show, but to wrap it up like this was pretty good, and for the writers to be kind of on their A game. Dexter has no choice but to depend on Harrison, who is becoming shockingly well adjusted, all things considered, to get him out of Prater's vault. And it's kind of weird, I will say, that is kind of an inconsistency here. Harrison, how willing he is to like, oh, okay, you need help getting out? I got you. The thrilling scene where Dexter tells Harrison to input the 8-digit code, which wasn't the date of Prater's parents' deaths, but in fact the inmate number of their killer, Cooper Morris, was straight out of an action heist movie. That was great. Obviously, it was pretty cliche, corny, but I don't know. Harrison's loyalty to his father ends up being Dexter's saving grace, so that's fun. I like that those two can finally connect and reconcile, and Harrison's not like an emotional wreck or a dumbass anymore. I think that is a great change for his character. Dinklage and Thurman have been great all season, all the way up to the finale, kind of talking about them as well, which is a relief since they could just have been big name actors used to draw attention to the series, but no, they seem to be mainstays. Now obviously Prater is no longer in the picture for season 2, but we could possibly see Charlie come back later on. You just never know. Her character's still around. Obviously she gets out of New York with her sick mother, but there's that. Thurman's Charlie finds her own freedom from Prater after discovering that he kept a hidden file on her, which is fucking creepy as shit, while Prater was rightfully killed for murdering Batista. Has every reason to be put on Dexter's kill table. Prater's arc from becoming a fanatic to an actual killer was a pretty smart development, and I think that was kind of cool, kind of the false connection he thought he had with Dexter he tried to make, and that was pretty creative. There was a moment when I thought he was actually going to kill Harrison in front of Dexter too, based on what happened, and if that happened, oh my god, that would have honestly broke me. Wallace's dance scene to Staying Alive was icing on the cake. It was kind of fucking weird, but I don't know, it was fun. Of course, the one moment she lets loose, all hell breaks loose at Prater's gala. It marked one of 2 great musical callbacks in the episode, other one being Badoom by Scrouge, as Dexter entered Prater's penthouse to save Harrison through the same elevator that he had used to meet Prater's kill club back in, I think it was episode 4 when that whole thing was introduced, which it's crazy that wrapped up in like 6 episodes. How wild is that? They were really on a fucking speed run there. Dexter robbing Prater of his blood slide worked well as a way to dishonor him seconds before his death. I think that was kind of a badass gesture from Dexter to be like, no, fuck you, I don't want to remember you, you don't get a blood slide. Something sick inside Prater would have felt honored, obviously, to be immortalized and included among the Bay Harbor Butcher's victims, you know, being a fan himself, but Dexter didn't want to remember Prater again or commemorate him as a trophy and was only interested in taking out the trash that killed Batista. Yeah, there's a really dope second season coming, I think. I think the finale, just talking about that and how it transitions, I think it did a pretty good job at that. After the end seemed near for both Dexter and Harrison at certain points in this finale, Dexter appears to be in a pretty sweet spot to close out the first season, honestly. With a stockpile of files of known serial killers, including Eric Stone Street's Rapunzel killer Owl, all signs point to Dexter taking a road trip or 2 in the next season. I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities that this finale kind of opens up, and I think that is a great quality to have if you're talking season finales, to open up for the next season, and obviously if it's a series finale, close it out well. But we have more to come, so that's great. That said, if this season finale confirms anything, it's that the theme of Dexter's loved ones dying as a result of his actions is still very much alive, and that was a pretty dope dynamic, and it made for interesting television back in the original run, so I think for them to kind of incorporate that back in this season once again, I think that's great. But with Batista gone, as well as Rita, Brian, Deb, and several other Miami Metro colleagues, that list is gradually dwindling, making Harrison a clear target in season 2, and a lot are going to be led to believe that we might not see Harrison after season 2. Who knows? As long as Harrison sticks by Dexter's side, his life will always be at risk, and especially this episode more than ever. It would be fantastic also if Charlie could somehow return next season, although she told her mother she was heading back to Amherst in Massachusetts. She's a Harvard Law graduate. That's kind of where Harvard's at. She's just too great a character for the series to let go of, and could even become an ally to Dexter, whose first target will likely be Al in season 2, and that is something we kind of forgot about. That's kind of floating around. Rapunzel still on the loose. That's awesome. I do think there's a lot of potential. Again, did I want Batista to die this early? No. But it sets up for some other things that I wasn't really expecting before. And also, it's unclear what characters will return. I mean, talking about the NYP detectives with Wallace and Olivia, will they return in season 2? Who knows? You know, since they are pretty much wrapped up when Wallace found Prater's New York Ripper file, revealed to be a man named Don Rampt. I don't know. I mean, obviously that dispels any fan theories that the Ripper was blessing Kamara or even Oliva. Unless Resurrection takes place in NYC again, we may never find out who Don Rampt is, which is kind of fucking stupid. That is disappointing, but whatever. If this show sticks around NYC in season 2, it might be because Harrison and Dexter split up for a bit while Dexter goes after his new hit list. Who knows? Maybe they'll have a whole thing where Harrison's kind of like fighting by himself and becoming an actual killer like Dexter, which would kind of suck for his character because it's kind of demoralizing to see him go through that turmoil. But who knows where the show's going to take it. I'm very intrigued. Now, I don't know when they're planning on dropping the next season. Is it going to be later this year? Is it going to be spring next year? Who fucking knows, man? But Harrison's got a lot of stuff, you know, finding his footing in NYC. He's got college aspirations. He's got a new girlfriend, a freaky one at that, Emily Kimball. Holy fuck, man. And Dexter may not want to screw that up. And I actually found out, fun fact, Emily Kimball was actually in an episode of Wu-Tang, the like show they have that's been going on for like 6 years now. She was in that. Obviously like a slut, but that's kind kind of a cool little fact to learn about her. I was kind of looking into her. But that said, if Dex didn't have a sidekick in the finale, he would surely have died or been caught. So Harrison served a huge purpose here, especially compared to what we saw out of him in New Blood. So that's pretty relieving. This may be where Charlie steps in, or a few new characters in season 2. Who fucking knows? A lot of possibilities. I'm very excited for it. Let's get into the review. So getting into the review, I am very happy to say that this episode now has more pros than cons. Now, if you saw my last review, a previous episode, there were more cons than pros, which was probably the first time all season that happened, but they brought the momentum straight back here. Thankfully, sticking the landing, I think that's a pro in itself. The fact that the writers managed so many disappointing cuts to storylines and pacing issues and all these different things, and they wrapped it up very well for what was on the table. I don't think it's a perfect finale. I think things could have ended way better, but for what they had, I think they did good. Taking Prater out, Dexter and Harrison working together, that dynamic hasn't been as high as it is now. I think that's at an all-time high, just their relationship. That's kind of some of the best moments we've seen with these two characters in this episode, so that's something to honor as well. Charlie had a satisfying conclusion, and there's still hope that she will return for season 2. Now, if they don't return her, that would kind of suck, but there you go. Brian Moser had a nice standout as a cameo. Shout out to him. I think the only bad thing about this episode is the whole NY Ripper situation where, oh, it's Don Framped. And, you know, obviously Wallace, she kind of like perks up like, like she like gasps about it. And they probably have a past. Maybe that's going to be a side story in the next season. But as of now, it's kind of disappointing that fan theories weren't really serviced. Whatever. It's fine. I don't really have much to say though. GZTV, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Again, school is kicking my ass, but I'm going to try to get some videos out. You're getting the Guardians of the Galaxy video on Saturday. This could potentially come out Sunday. I don't fucking know, man. I'm just kind of going with the flow here, seeing what the YouTube channel brings. And now every single week also NFL is coming up. So we'll be doing videos on that. That should be an exciting time. Every week you will at least get that and some new music stuff. That's coming throughout this weekend as well. So that being said, I'm out, guys. Peace.